Hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Skye and today we're doing a 2 looks plus review with the Fantasy Cosmetica Druid Palette. If you're not interested in hearing my review of the palette, skip to this timestamp right here, it will take you straight to look 1. But to start things off, let's get on into talking about this palette, the price, and my review of it. Now if you don't know, Fantasy Cosmetica are a fairly new indie brand. I believe they launched this year. They are based in the US. And their whole brand, as you can tell by the name, is themed around fantasy and everything just mystical and magical like that, which tugs at my heartstrings greatly. And the Druid palette was their first palette to launch. As you can see, this is what it looks like right here. You can see the bear and the druid right here. I will say my critique of the packaging, I find that by the way, the ingredients are listed on the back right here. I find that it's a little bit too dark. Like, I feel like it's kind of hard to read. Like, I feel like if the background was a little bit lighter, you could be able to see the design a bit better, but that's me being nitpicky. This palette was sent to me in PR, but this video isn't sponsored. They're not paying me to do this video. I just wanted to do some looks with this palette and show it off to you guys. So, the Druid palette right here is a 9-pan palette with 4 mattes and 6 shimmers. It also has a big mirror right here. And let's talk about the matte formula first, as always. So the mattes in here, although there are only 4, they are lovely. This matte formula is very pigmented, very blendable, and I find that you don't really need much on your brush, like, to get a good amount of pigment. Like, these are very, very fucking pigmented straight off the bat. Now, I will say that the shade Sage right here does deepen on the eyes as you start to blend it, which it's kind of a normal thing to happen to these kind of murky greens. They kind of do darken on the eyes a little bit, but just keep that in mind when you're using it, that the more you layer it, the darker it gets, which I guess makes it a little bit more universal, like at least in my experience whenever I used it to like blend out like the edges and stuff. Now that being said, all the mattes in here are really rich and deep. Like, I absolutely love this forest shade right here. It is such a jewel toned green, absolutely gorgeous. And these 2 other browns in here, one of them is a bit more like a standard brown, I guess, and then this one right here is more of a plummy brown. I'm using both of these shades on my eyes today, and while they are different, I feel like they are different, but I kind of wish there was slightly more differentiation between them. Like, I feel like if this shade was a bit lighter or a bit more orange toned compared to this one, then they would look a lot more different on the eyes. Now let's talk about the shimmer formula in here. There's quite a few different shimmers in this palette. So from what I have experienced, these 3 shadows right here are more of a squishy texture. They're almost like Colourpop Super Shock shadows, but not as like moist, I'd say. They are a bit softer and more emollient, but they are super shiny and sparkly on the lids. This shade Balance, is it called Balance? No, this one's called Serenity. This is such a gorgeous foiled lime shade. It's not a duochrome, but it is so intense on the eyes. Like, it is one of my favorite shades in this palette. It just draws my eye in straight away. The shade Balance right here, you can just see in the pan, like, it is a stunning duochrome. If I shift like the palette a little bit, you can kind of see the shift. It is absolutely stunning. It reminds me a lot of Glam Shop Laser, which is quite a popular shade. And I love using Balance on my inner corners. I'm wearing it on my inner corners today. I think it is just so bright and intense. And because it's a squishy formula, it's very universal. I absolutely love this shade. And this shade right here is the same as Divina Asteria, I believe is the name. Also Glam Shop Zigzag, if you're familiar with those shades. It is a wonderful jewel-toned duochrome that shifts, that has like a reddish base and shifts to like a lovely forest green. It is stunning, it is so intense and like deep. These 3 shimmers are just fantastic, I love them very much. Now the other 2 shimmers in this palette, which are Bare Form and Regrowth. Bare Form is just a standard metallic. It's not like Serenity, it is a bit more like of your traditional metallic, if you get what I'm saying. Like, I feel like if I swatch them next to each other, you might be able to tell the difference. Like, I think you can see that Serenity just has a bit more, like, chromaticness and shine to it, whereas Bare Form is just a regular shimmer. Like, you can slightly see the difference there. I just find that bare form, it isn't, well, it is like a standard metallic. For me, standard metallics just don't really do it for me. They're just not my thing. I prefer something that is like super sparkly and intense, or if it's not like a duochrome or a multichrome, I just want like intense foiled sparkly shimmers. Like that's just my cup of tea. I love those very much. And the shade Regrowth right here, it's really firm and it's kind of like a, I don't know, it is the, like, it's very firm in the pan, like when I swatch it, and it's kind of just like a, I don't really know how to describe it. It's not like bare form, it's not like, I don't know how to describe it, to be honest. It is more of a satin shade, I feel like there is literally barely any shine to it. And if you have been on my channel for any length of time, you would know that satin shades are just not my thing. They're not for me. I'm not a satin boy. I never use them. So ironically enough, those two shades are my least favorite shades in the palette. Everything else, I love the formula. They have no wearing issues on my eyes. I have oily eyelids and I always use the Milani eyeshadow primer with every single formula that I use. I had no wearing issues, no creasing problems. These eyeshadows wear beautifully, and I love the color story in here. I feel like it's very true to like druids and all of that, and it reminds me of World of Warcraft, because I used to play as a night elf druid all the fucking time. Now usually in these like 2 looks plus review videos, I like to use as many shades in the palette, if not all the shades, and funnily enough, the only 2 shades I didn't use in either of the looks were the 2 shimmers that I didn't really like. I was gonna force myself to use these 2 in this look today, but I was like, you know what, no. One thing I forgot to mention is the price of this palette. This palette retails for $38.99 US, which this is the price here in pounds and in euros.
$3,899 equals £3,413.94.
That's not what I meant, Google. Put a decimal point in there and then we got it correct. So yeah, this palette retails for £34, and to be honest, I was actually going to be buying this palette when it released, but I was moving house, life just didn't coordinate in time, so I was actually planning on buying this palette, but when Fantasy Cosmetica reached out to me to send over their Sorcerer palette, which now I also own, they also sent the Druid palette, so I'm really grateful to Fantasy Cosmetica for sending this over. I really love this color story, these like grungy greens, these caca tones, I love so much. They speak to my soul immensely, especially during this time of year. So yeah, would I recommend this palette? Honestly, I'd say yes. I really like the color story and the arrangement of shades. Like I said, there are a few things I would change about it, so I feel like if I had to give this palette like a rating out of 10, I think I'd give it like a 7 out of 10, in all honesty, because I'm not gonna use 2 shades out of 9, so that's kind of like a meh. Could have done without those. With that being said, even though I would also wish that this shade was a little bit lighter, or just a different shade entirely, just because it's a bit too similar to the other shade, I know that I'll be getting a lot of use out of this palette, and I really am inspired by the color story and the theming and all of that, and the formula is really, really good, so I feel like if you get this palette, you will not be disappointed. Those are my thoughts on the Druid palette. So with all of that said, let's go on into the 2 looks that I created. This look right here that I am wearing right now is look number 2, so hopefully you enjoy the looks that I created. Alright, welcome to the first look with the Fantasy Cosmetica Druid palette. So today I'm thinking of playing in with the greens in here mostly. I know there's a few like neutrally tones, but I really want to dip into these greens and do like a super shimmery, like potentially smoky look as well. Like always, I am priming my eyes with the Milani eyeshadow primer and not setting it. Alright, I'm first dipping into this shade right here called Sage. I literally have no idea where this look is gonna go, but I'm first gonna take Sage and blend that kind of on my lash line and kind of winging it out a little bit. I'm also taking a bit of Sage on the outer portion of my lower lash line just to connect it with the wing. And actually I'm going to drag that all the way to the inner portion of the lower lash line too. Just all the way. Rightio, now I'm going in with this shade right here, Forest, the deep forest green matte. And I'm gonna take that on a super tiny pencil brush. This is stained pink, but there's no pink eyeshadow on it. And I'm going to stamp that and blend it a little bit on top of Sage and just keeping it really tight to the lash line. And I'm also going to be putting this on the outer portion of the lower lash line. And I'm not going to drag it too far in, because I want the smokiness to be on the outside. And I'm just going back in with that first brush to make sure everything's blended. I haven't dipped into any eyeshadow with this brush, I'm just using it to fluff. Now I'm just going to take a little bit of the Fenty Pixie Epoxy on the back of my hand, and I'm going to apply this on the inner portion of the lid, like of the wing, and I'm using an angled brush to do this. You're not really going to be able to see what I'm doing, like always when I use this product, but it's just so the eyeshadow, the shimmery shadows stick. I'm just going to let that dry for a few seconds, and the shadow we're going to be putting on top of that is this one right here called Serenity. I love this shade so much. It is so foiled and intense. I absolutely love it. And I'm going back in with that angled brush, and I'm just going to stamp that on top of where I put the Fenty Pixie Epoxy, like stamp and sweep. Now I'm going back in with the pencil brush just to re-intensify that forest shade and kind of make sure there's no harsh edge between the shimmer and the matte. Alright, and for the inner corners I'm taking this shade right here called Balance. It is a wonderful duochrome, and I'm plonking that right on the inner corner, and I'm also going to be dragging that a bit into the lash line. I love this shimmer so much. It is so lovely. Okay, so I'm going to do my lashes, eye pencil, lips, and the other eye off camera, and I'll be back to show you the final look. It's really simple, but I really like it. Okay, I am back with the completed look. If you're curious about what I used, for my waterline, I used a mixture of these two. These are both Colourpop Creme gel liners. This one is the shade Fast Lane. I put that in the outer portion of the waterline, and this one is Groundbreaker. I put that on the inner portion. I thought having a nice like earthy toned liner would be really nice with this look. Forgot to mention, but for my blush I'm using the Patick Blush Duo in She's Baked. I used the matte side, the matte powder side, and for my lips I used the Colourpop Blur lipstick in Unreal. However, I did keep the lip balm that I had on underneath, so it's kind of more of a cream lipstick instead of a matte, but I really like it, so that's my lip colour. This is the completed look. I will say that this eye, the wing shape is a little bit dodgy. I feel like I kind of perfected it on this eye, but you know, sometimes that just is how it is, and I love this look. I just love doing these like smoky wings. They're just my favourite thing to do, and especially with the pop of shimmer there, and I think it just adds a bit of interest to it, and I think these kind of greens complement my eye colour and my hair colour really nicely. So yeah, that is my first look with the Druid palette. I'm really excited to see what I do for look 2, because I have no idea. The shades that I have left to use are all of like these tones. So we'll see what I do with that look. But anyways, this completes look number 1. Hope you enjoyed it. And let's move on to look number 2. Welcome to the second look with the Druid palette. Now today I'm mostly going to be playing with these brown tones right here, and I'm thinking of doing like a really nice matte smoky moment on the lid and then doing a graphic liner shape with this shade right here. I want to look like the roots of a forest today. That's the inspiration. Okay, we tactically ignore my lip crust, but I am in a spooky bitch mood. I am excited to do something dark and smoky, so first things first, we are priming the eyes with Milani eye primer, as always. Okay, so we're first taking the shade Root right here, and I'm going to be blending that on my lid pretty haphazardly. These mattes have a lot of powder kick up, so these mattes are so pigmented. Like, I just tapped in a couple of times to get that, and slowly building it up. Now I'm taking a clean brush and just trying to diffuse the edges. I'll diffuse them more a bit later, but just to start things off. And now on my lid I am taking Old Growth, the other deep matte in here. And this one's a bit more plummy toned, so I'm just going to be packing that on the lid. I personally feel like these two matte shades are a little bit too close to each other. Like this one's more plum toned and the other one's more like brown, but like I feel like they're a little bit too similar. Not gonna lie. But we are just placing that on the lid. And then I'm gonna go back into the first shade Root, and I'm just taking that on the same brush. Just running it on my lower lash line. Then I'm going back into that first blending brush and just blending out the edges. I feel like this eyeshadow matches my eye colour like perfectly. I kind of love. Now in all honesty, I would like to keep this look just like this, but I want to use the other shades in this palette, so we are going to do a sparkly winged liner. So I'm going to take some Farinay Pixie Epoxy on the back of my hand and sketch out a wing shape. I love doing shimmer winged liner when I'm trying to use as many shades in the palette as possible. So we're just going to be sketching out a traditional wing shape, but making it super long. But I also like to only finish the wing at like the outside of my iris. I don't like to bring it all the way in because I find that that closes off my eye. If I leave it out here, it kind of like keeps it open. Just gonna let that get tacky for a few seconds and just fan it a bit, trying not to open my eye while I do this. And then I'm gonna go into the shade, what's it called? Transformation, this one right here. And hopefully this works because this shade is quite dark, so hopefully you're going to be able to see the liner. But we're going to be stamping and swiping this on top. Normally when I do these sorts of winged looks, I like to pick a shimmer that is super bright, but I think by picking this like grungier shimmer, it'll kind of tie in a bit better. Oh, that is lovely. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it on camera, but that Duochrome is so shifty. Oh, I love it. And to tie this look together, I'm taking the shade Balance and I'm going to put that on my inner corner. I love this shade so much. I'm a big whore for any like green shades like this. I just think they are absolutely gorgeous. And we're just going to keep this focused on the inner corner. Normally I like to bring it like a bit further in, but I'm just wanting to keep the spotlight right on the inner corner. Okay, I'm going to go off camera, do my lashes, eye pencil and lips, and we'll be back to talk about this look and wrap up my thoughts. Okay, we have the look all completed right here. If you're curious about what I used for the rest of my makeup, for my eyeliner, I used the Colourpop Creme Gel Liner in Groundbreaker. I can't stop using this lately, it just complements every look. And for my lips, I used the Kaleidos lip clay in the shade Cognac, and I did kind of like a blurred diffused lip look to match the eyes because I thought that would be really cool, and I love how this came out. Oh yeah, and I didn't even mention my blush. I used the Patick Blush Duo in She's Baked, the matte side right here. I've been loving this blush lately. Oh, I love it very much. This look, oh, I love it. I love how smoky and dark it is. I love that it matches my eye color like perfectly. And the pop of the beautiful Duochrome eyeliner is like so gorgeous and it's so shifty. Well, that is my final look with the Druid palette. Now let's get on into the outro. So that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Do let me know, have you tried Fantasy Cosmetica? Is this palette on your wish list? What are your thoughts on it? I would really like to know. Again, thank you so much to Fantasy Cosmetica for sending this palette over. I absolutely love it. It is such a lovely little palette and I'm so excited to see what they release next. And also don't you worry, I will be getting a 2 Looks Plus review with the Sorcerer palette in due time. Hopefully sometime soon. It'll probably be the next 2 Looks Plus review. I love this palette so much, spoiler alert. I really fucking love it. If you'd like to see more makeup content from me, then you can follow me on my Instagram. It's beautyybyskye right here. I post all my looks there and I'm active on there every single day. And if you'd like to support me further, I do have my own small business, Rain Cloud Candles Co. We are a small queer-owned business based in the UK and we make handmade candles. The link to shop will be down below, along with our social media if you'd like to support us. And we are going to be working on some newness that's coming in October. I got some new products coming. Potentially, maybe they're in the frame that you can see right here, but shh, you didn't hear that from me. You heard nothing from me. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I would love to have you here. And as always, stay safe, wash your hands, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.